The locker room wasn't quiet. It never was before a fight. Metal doors slammed, trainers barked instructions, someone's gloves hit the wall in rhythm over and over like a heartbeat that refused to slow down. But in the corner, wrapped in his own silence, sat Muhammad Ali. This was 1971, Philadelphia, the city that had seen champions rise and fall, where the streets taught you to fight before you could walk, and where respect wasn't given, it was earned with blood and sweat under unforgiving lights. Ali sat on a wooden bench, hands already wrapped, eyes fixed on something no one else could see. His cornermen moved around him like water around stone. They knew better than to interrupt when he went to that place inside himself, that place where the noise of the world became nothing more than a distant hum. The door swung open. Heavy steps, the kind that announced arrival before words ever could. Everyone looked up. The man who walked in stood 6'4", maybe taller. His shoulders barely fit through the doorframe, 280 pounds of muscle that moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. His name was Jimmy the Wall Patterson, and he'd earned that name by putting 17 men on the canvas in the first round. 17 men who thought they could break through. 17 men who learned otherwise. Patterson wasn't scheduled to fight that night. He was there because his gym shared the building, because he wanted to see what all the fuss was about, because in his mind, Muhammad Ali was all talk and no substance, a showman in a sport that demanded warriors. He stopped in the middle of the locker room. "So this is the great Muhammad Ali," Patterson said. His voice carried like thunder in an empty canyon. "The Louisville Lip, the man who talks bigger than he fights." Ali didn't move, didn't even look up. His cornermen froze. Angelo Dundee, who had seen Ali through every battle, every storm, felt his stomach tighten. He knew that look on Ali's face, that stillness. It was the kind that came before earthquakes. Patterson took 3 steps forward. His boots scraped against concrete. "I said you talk too much," Patterson repeated, louder this time. "All that poetry, all that dancing, all that predicting rounds. You think this is entertainment? This is fighting, real fighting, not some circus act for cameras." The room held its breath. One of the trainers started to step forward, but Dundee grabbed his arm, shook his head. This wasn't their moment to interfere. Ali's hands rested on his knees. His breathing was steady. In, out, like the ocean at night when the world had gone to sleep. Then slowly he lifted his head. His eyes met Patterson's, and something shifted in the air. Not anger, not pride, something older than both. Something that had been forged in a gym in Louisville when he was 12 years old and someone stole his bicycle. Something that had been tempered every single day since, through every punch, every mile run at dawn, every moment when the world told him he couldn't be who he knew he was. "You finished?" Ali asked. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Patterson blinked. He hadn't expected that. "I'm just telling you the truth," Patterson said, but there was less thunder in his voice now. "In my day, fighters fought. They didn't talk." Ali stood up. Not rushed, not aggressive. He rose like smoke, like something inevitable. Even though Patterson had 50 pounds on him, even though Patterson was taller, somehow Ali filled more space. His presence expanded to touch every corner of that locker room. "In your day," Ali said, still quiet, still measured, fighters were afraid to be themselves. They let other people tell their stories. They let promoters make them into whatever sold tickets. They kept their mouths shut and their heads down, and they took whatever crumbs they were given." He took 1 step forward. "I don't do that." Patterson's jaw tightened. "You think you're special? You think talking makes you?" "I know I'm special," Ali interrupted, still calm, still controlled. "But not because I talk, because I'm willing to be exactly who I am in a world that keeps telling me to be smaller, quieter, less." The silence in that room was absolute now. "You came in here," Ali continued, "because you wanted to see if I was real, if all the words meant anything, if the man matched the mouth." He took another step.
6 seconds, Ali said. Patterson frowned. What? 6 seconds. That's what the title of some video will say someday. Muhammad Ali was in locker room when 280-pound heavyweight said you talk too much. 6 seconds later, they'll make it sound like I knocked you out, like I proved something with my fists. Ali shook his head slowly. But that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. He was close to Patterson now, close enough that everyone in the room tensed, close enough that Dundee's hand moved instinctively towards them, ready to intervene. You want to know the truth? Ali asked. The truth is, I do talk. I talk because silence gave us nothing. I talk because my people have been told to be quiet for 400 years, and I refuse. I talk because every time I open my mouth, someone who looks like me sees that it's possible to be proud, to be bold, to be unapologetically yourself. Patterson's hands, which had been clenched into fists, slowly relaxed. I talk, Ali said, because the world is watching. And if I'm going to be watched, if I'm going to have this platform, this moment in history, I'm going to use it for something more than just punching another man in the face. He stepped back. But you're right about one thing, Ali said. Actions matter. So let me show you something. He turned and walked to the heavy bag hanging in the corner, the same bag that had absorbed thousands of his punches over the years, the same bag that bore the marks of his preparation, his dedication, his refusal to be anything less than excellent. Ali didn't wind up, didn't telegraph. His hand moved so fast it was almost invisible. A jab, clean, precise, perfect. The bag, which weighed more than 100 pounds, swung violently. The chain holding it groaned. Then another jab, then another. Speed like lightning, power like thunder. Each punch landing in the exact same spot. Each impact echoing through the locker room like a drum announcing war. After 6 punches, Ali stopped. The bag swung wildly, its momentum carrying it back and forth like a pendulum marking time. Ali turned back to Patterson. I talk, Ali said, but I also train. 4 in the morning, every morning. While the world sleeps, I'm running. While people are eating dinner, I'm in the gym. While others are making excuses, I'm getting better. He unwrapped one of his hands slowly, deliberately. The talking, that's for show. That's for the cameras. That's to sell tickets and make sure people pay attention. But this, he held up his unwrapped hand, this is real. This is earned. This is what happens when you dedicate your entire life to being the best at something. Patterson stood there, silent now. The bravado had drained from his face like water through open fingers. You called me the Louisville Lip. You're not wrong. I am from Louisville. I do talk. But you know what else I am? I'm the heavyweight champion of the world. I'm the man who beat Sonny Liston when everyone said it was impossible. I'm the man who refuses to fight in a war I don't believe in, even though it cost me everything. He sat back down on the bench. So yeah, Jimmy, I talk too much, but I also live too much. I risk too much. I give too much. And when I step into that ring tonight, I'm going to prove again that all those words are backed by something real. The locker room was so quiet, you could hear someone breathing 3 rooms away. Patterson stood there for a long moment. His face went through a dozen expressions: anger, confusion, realization, respect. He opened his mouth twice to say something, but nothing came out. Finally, he nodded, once, slow. Good luck tonight, champ, Patterson said. And then he turned and walked out.
The door closed behind him with a soft click. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then Angelo Dundee let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Champ, he said, his voice rough with emotion. That was necessary, Ali interrupted. He started wrapping his other hand. People don't understand. They think that talking is arrogance. They think it's disrespect. He pulled the wrap tight. But it's not. It's survival. It's elevation. It's making sure that when people remember me, they remember more than just a fighter. They remember a man who stood for something. One of the younger trainers, barely 20 years old, spoke up. But what if he'd swung on you? What if he'd... Ali smiled. Not the big theatrical smile he gave the cameras, a smaller one, real. Then I would have handled it, he said simply, but I knew he wouldn't. You know how I knew? Everyone waited. Because he wasn't angry. He was curious. He was testing. And deep down, underneath all that muscle and bravado, he was hoping I was real, hoping that everything he'd heard wasn't just smoke. People don't admit it, but they want heroes. They want someone to believe in. He finished wrapping his hand and flexed his fingers. I didn't win that moment by fighting, Ali continued. I won it by showing him that words and action aren't enemies. They're partners. The words get attention. The action earns respect. Together, they change the world. Dundee put a hand on Ali's shoulder. You ready for the night? Ali stood up, rolled his shoulders, bounced on his toes twice, testing his body, feeling the readiness that lived in his bones. Angelo, he said, I was born ready. 2 hours later, Muhammad Ali stepped into that ring under lights so bright they felt like sunlight. The crowd roared, the cameras flashed, the announcers talked over each other trying to predict what would happen. And Ali did what he always did. He danced, he moved, he jabbed with the speed that made people question if they'd actually seen it or imagined it. He talked between rounds, predicting what would happen, building the story even as he lived it. But more than that, he fought with a precision and power that silenced every doubt, every critic, every person who thought the words were bigger than the warrior behind him. In the 8th round, his opponent went down. The referee counted to 10. The crowd erupted, and somewhere, watching from a bar or a home or maybe standing in the back of the arena, Jimmy the Wall Patterson watched and understood what Ali had been trying to tell him. This wasn't about talking too much. It was about being brave enough to be yourself when the whole world was watching, brave enough to stand for something when it would be easier to stand for nothing, brave enough to use your voice as a weapon just as powerful as your fists. Years later, Patterson would tell the story of that moment in the locker room, how he'd walked in ready to expose a fraud and walked out having met a prophet, how 6 seconds of watching Ali hit that heavy bag had taught him more about dedication than 6 years in the gym, how silence sometimes speaks louder than any words ever could, but how Muhammad Ali understood something even deeper, that the right words at the right time, backed by the right actions, could shake the foundations of the world. The locker room encounter became a legend. People told different versions. Some said Ali had threatened him. Some said they'd nearly fought. Some said Patterson had backed down in fear. But the people who were there that night knew the truth. It wasn't about fear. It wasn't about dominance. It was about one man showing another man what it meant to be complete, to be fully yourself, to refuse the limitations that others tried to place on your voice, your presence, your power. Muhammad Ali didn't need to knock out Jimmy Patterson in that locker room. He did something far more difficult. He made him understand. And understanding, real understanding, is the kind of victory that lasts forever. The kind that changes not just one fight, but every fight that comes after. The kind that turns a moment into a movement. 6 seconds was all it took to throw those 6 punches at the heavy bag, but the impact of those 6 seconds would echo for decades. In every fighter who refused to be quiet, in every person who stood up and said, I am who I am, and that's enough. In every moment when someone chose to be both loud and excellent, refusing to pick one over the other. That was Muhammad Ali's true gift. Not the punches, not the predictions, not even the championships. It was showing the world that you could be everything at once. Poet and warrior, showman and assassin, voice and fist, dream and reality. And he didn't just talk about it, he lived it every single day, in every locker room, in every ring, in every moment when the world was watching and waiting to see if the words were real. They were. They always had been. And 6 seconds was all it took to prove it.
I make no money from these videos. My sole purpose is to keep Muhammad Ali and his incredible legacy alive. Muhammad Ali wasn't just a world champion boxer. He was a philosophy, a stand for justice, and a global symbol of honor and courage. His life story, his struggles against the tide, and his unwavering principles deserve to be passed on to future generations. That is why on this channel I will continue to share iconic moments from his life, untold stories, and the deep wisdom of the greatest. Every video is a sincere tribute to his memory. If you also believe that Muhammad Ali is a legend who should never be forgotten, and if you want his teachings to reach more people, please subscribe. Your support is the greatest motivation for me to continue this mission. Thank you. Let's keep the spirit of Muhammad Ali alive together.